So, let me just tell you something about this movie. This movie that was nominated for Best Picture by the Producers Guild of America. This movie that was nominated for 2 SAG Awards for Outstanding Actor in a Lead Role, an Outstanding Cast in a Motion Picture. A movie that has made about $750 million worldwide. And, are you ready for this? Come on, less than 24 hours ago. Wow. Man, oh man. Lead actor, drama. Best Picture, drama. Are you ready to meet the cast of Bohemian Rhapsody? Please welcome to the stage, Joe Mazzello. Please welcome to the stage, Ben Hardy. Please welcome to the stage, GWILYM. Please welcome to the stage, LUCY BOYNTON. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up, do your best for RAMI MALEK! Wow. All right. So, first of all, I mean, I feel like Barbara Walters right now. So, first of all, congratulations. I mean, for everyone, for this movie to win Best Picture Drama, what was it like for? I mean, you were separate from the cast, but what was it like for all of you? Like, you know, what was it like?
I missed it. What happened? We were all still trying to take stock. It was it was such a shock, and it was bedlam. It was just absolute carnage. We were all together watching it, and yeah.
It was like a mass rising of the Bohemian Rhapsody corner of the room, and just the screams and yells, yeah.
And also, it happened so fast. Like, we didn't get over the fact that RAMI had won. Like, we were still celebrating that, and we were all sort of hugging, and then it was like, wait, what? We were Bohemian Rhapsody, and then it was just mayhem.
Well, I mean, RAMI, when you accepted for your Best Actor, you said you were going to tackle your cast. Did you actually do that?
I did. We've been celebrating for quite a while now.
We've all got the bruises to show it. Yeah.
Well, you know,
we've become so extraordinarily close. Last night we were talking about you never really have this experience on film. You walk away, and I mean, there's always people you keep in touch with, but not to the degree that we have. I mean, we communicate every single day. Yeah, it's extraordinary.
You know, what I loved about your speech, among other things, RAMI, was you made a point to thank your ensemble, and that is what this movie is. It's not just the Freddie Mercury show. This is a true ensemble. And I want to ask, like, when you first came on, whether it was when you read the script or you all met each other, like, what was your take on, yeah, actually, this really is an ensemble? Like, let's start with you, Joe.
We just sort of got a sense that there were a number of very important people in Freddie Mercury's life, and he had a unique and individual relationship with all of them. And so you kind of felt that immediately when reading the script, that, like, you could see, you know, Freddie with this person, Freddie with that person. Freddie was a very empathetic person and really understood what everyone was going through and how to make them feel more comfortable and could read a room really well. And so I think when you got that script in your hands, you felt that relationship with, you know, Mary Austin, and that was something that was so unique and special in his life. And then you saw something like Paul Prenter, you know, which was, you know, Alan Leach, who's amazing, and we wish he was here because he's incredible too. But that sort of relationship, that manipulation and sort of working on his, Freddie's insecurities and things like that. And then you have the band, just sort of the, the Lion, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man sort of to, I guess, Dorothy? I don't know. Just sort of that, what he needed, with like sort of the brain, the heart, the courage, sort of that thing. And, we sort of tried to supply that for Freddie to give him the boost that he needed when he was on stage and in his life. And so much of the movie's about family, and we talk about it all the time. And so I think that hopefully that really comes through in the, what came in the movie.
It definitely does. How about for you, Ben? Like, what was your take on the ensemble nature of this movie and how you took it to another level, inspiring each other and elevating each other?
Also, I can't believe you compared the movie to The Wizard of Oz. That's insane. But I suppose, I think what was great about the rehearsal process for this movie is that to make sure that we got that ensemble, we had rehearsals. And like when you see Queen perform, they're amazing together, they're an incredible band, and they're incredible musicians, they're all incredible musicians, but they have this great connection between the four of them. And you see it just through their eye contact with each other, through everything. And so for us to have that 4 weeks to really kind of just spend all day, every day with each other, and sometimes the evenings as well. Yeah, it was really great, and I think you can see it in the movie. And I think there's so many films where people try and fake that chemistry, and you can tell. And I think that's partly what makes this movie special, is the chemistry between all of us.
GWILYM, I want to ask, first of all, you look crazy, so much like Brian May. It's absolutely out of control. But Roger and Brian are so. I mean, they're Queen. They were very hands-on. I mean, they were at the party last night. But in especially for both of you, because they were so hands-on, like. Did that take it to another level in terms of being like a daunting process to play these guys?
Well, I mean, it could have been, but these are two of the nicest human beings that you've ever met. So actually, there was never a sense of judgment. It was always, they were there in support, basically. And so I think Roger was the same, just felt like he had his blessing, I think. And, they were excited that this film was being made. We would be rehearsing Live Aid. And in a rehearsal room in London, and Brian May, on our first day of all being together, this is the first day all four of us have been together, Brian May kind of said, do you mind if I watch? You do a run-through? We're like, no, I've never really done a run-through, but you're Brian May, so yeah, you can watch. So we were kind of terrified starting off doing the Live Aid bit, and then once we had the courage after a minute or so to kind of raise our eyes and look out into the audience, you see Brian May there with his iPhone, taking a video of us all, and like kind of waving his arms and cheering and clapping along, and it was quite surreal. And those surreal moments have not stopped throughout this whole process. Last night, in fact, I was sat next to Brian, showing him a photo that we'd done. We went to Tokyo as part of the publicity tour, and we thought it would be a cool thing to do. Sorry. Big night last night. We thought it would be a cool thing to do to replicate this photo that they'd done in Tokyo in 1975, which is the four of them sat on a red carpet, drinking tea in front of the Tokyo Tower. And Ben wasn't there, so we had to have a cardboard cutout of him. But we replicated this photo, and I showed it to Brian, and he was like welling up. He was looking at this photo, and I said, Brian, people take photos of you constantly, like. You can't remember all of them, but do you remember this? And he was like, I remember it vividly. And he was so emotional, and he was so emotional that we'd gone to the effort of doing this and replicating it. And that's just, what a gift, what a blessing.
Lucy, I want to ask you, who was your biggest help and inspiration in finding Mary?
Again, I think I owe most of it to Brian May. He was actually the person to introduce Mary to Freddie. And so was at the center point of viewing the trajectory of their relationship. And also his wife, Anita Dobson, spent a lot of time with Mary. So it was actually really fascinating to talk to them and kind of pull together their very personal experience, obviously, of her, and then the facts that I knew about her. And one of which was that Mary was a coder. Both of her parents were deaf, so she would only speak sign language at home, and neither of them knew that. Anita had no idea, and so that even something like that gives such great insight into a person that isn't something that you'll see in any scenes in the film, but it's just such an integral part of who and how she was, and then how she kind of socializes and engages, and then says so much about her relationship with Freddie and their kind of dynamic as well. So it's all kind of pulling and piecing together.
You know, Rami, I want to ask about, so Freddie, I mean, he's such a larger-than-life character and person, not a character. He's Freddie Mercury. He just was so, like, he could sell ice to an Eskimo with his performances. But to humanize him, what were your points of connection?
Yeah, that was something that I knew I would have to get my head around really quickly, because he is that rock god, and you know, just try to demystify the person behind that. I looked deeply into who he was and thought, how does he get to be so free and powerful on stage and hold everyone in the palm of his hand? And something led me to realize that at times, you know, he needed to be held in the palm of someone's hand as well. I thought about him from his origins, being an immigrant from Zanzibar, you know, being shipped off to India as a kid, away from his family. So the immediate distance and a sense of loneliness in that hit me in a way that I thought, how would that impact you as an individual? How would immigrating to London at 19 or 18, whatever it was, at his age, named Farouk Bulsara, Freddie Bulsara, with an extraordinary set of teeth, feeling like a fish out of water, not knowing what is happening with himself sexually, and at a time when you know, homosexuality was illegal. You know, only a few years prior, it must have been so difficult for that man to exist. And I just thought, man, there must have been something burning so deeply inside of him that just needed to just manifest itself on stage and release, and something he could just gave him the ability to be so free and connected to everyone in the audience, and being just this most authentic version of himself, where he could do and say anything he wanted with the biggest smile on his face and have the most confidence, because he was himself in that moment.
So when you were all cast and you all came together, where did that meeting happen?
It was like near Fitzrovia. It was just at the production offices for the three of us. And then Rami was still working on Mr. Robot, so we had to wait for him a little bit longer. But Rami and I, of course, met 11 years ago on the Pacific. We did the show together.
Really?
Yeah.
You've never mentioned that.
No. But yeah, we met and we basically did band practice almost immediately. Like, it was like choreography and stuff like that on like day 1 or 2.
So how does the I would say the makeup, hair and makeup, and the wardrobe elevate your performance? Like, if you're rehearsing and you're trying to get into character, and you know you're talking with Roger, you're talking with Brian, but then you get dolled up and you're wearing the hair and the makeup. How does that bring out something in your performance that you weren't even prepared to emote?
Yeah, you've got to rise to the level of those costumes. You know, you can't be kind of shy and reserved when you're wearing like platform heels and a winged silk white top. You know, you've got to really rise to it. So that helps a little bit. Yeah, and it got to the point every day. I mean, our costume designer, Julian Day, is a genius and designed the most amount of costumes I've ever known on one job. We had different costume every day. And so there'd be this kind of ritual in the mornings where we'd get changed and then step out of our trailers, and like there'd be kind of a a bit of a competition as to who had the most outrageous costume. Obviously, this guy won more often than not.
Most of the time.
With the wig.
Oh, I had your mom.
Who was? Yeah, okay. I was just gonna say with the wigs. I don't know. We never actually talked about this, but I don't know if you guys felt the same way. But when Dexter came on board and we started doing rehearsals, and it was the first time we kind of were performing together out of the wigs and out of the costume. I remember finding it really difficult. I remember being like, got so used to being in that kind of that 70s style. I found it really hard to then be there in modern clothing, trying to go back into that world. Did you find that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we look a bit. I mean, Joe had the perm, so even when the wig was off, you were still John Deacon, and actually, even to this day, you're still John Deacon. I mean, there's how the Joe was out. Look, there's a compliment.
I do remember that though. For me, it was even earlier. After we did Live Aid, we were just doing that day in and day out, you know. And then we went back to like that original stage where we had all met and were doing like sort of band rehearsals for the other shows that we had to do, Madison Square Garden, Budokan, all that. We just came in our normal clothes, and I was a little freaked out. I felt like that looked strange, and that like, you know, your mane of hair was totally normal, and Rami's mustache, that was like normal. And then I didn't recognize them. I felt like a little bit like I didn't know what to say to you. Like I was maybe a stranger.
Who was Polly Bennett?
Paula, she's extraordinary. I do want to talk about hair and makeup before. I had this, I was thinking the other day that by that last day of shooting, I started talking to our camera operator about the prosthetic nose I was wearing, and the focus puller, Dave Cousins, at one point, he's in charge of pulling focus on my eyeball, my nose, everybody else in the shot, but the guy is impeccable at what he sees. He sees everything. And it was one of the last days of shooting, and he goes, "Excuse me, what? You have a prosthetic nose on?" Yeah, I mean, that's how good Jan Sewell is. And every day when we were done shooting, she would meticulously remove this nose so it stayed intact. I mean, you could easily just scrub it off and have it in a million pieces, but she kept it intact and put it on a board every day.
It's the creepiest board.
There's no doubt about it. One day I tried to do it myself, and it's really difficult to get this thing off gingerly, but she did. She managed to put them all on this board and pin them in. And yeah, I mean, that's one of the souvenirs I still have. But it's so disgusting. But it was moments like that where I would she'd remove it, and then I'd go, "Oh, my ugly nose." And every day she would, because I loved those little aspects of looking more like him every day with the teeth and the mustache. You know, even in Live Aid, the hair that I wear in Live Aid is a wig, and I don't know if many people would be able to notice that. There are the longer wigs, but even then I was coming off of Mr. Robot, and I had my very short hair on the sides. I tried to grow it out as quickly as possible, but she had to get me a wig for Live Aid at the last second. And during the makeup test, I would go into Julian for all those costume fittings and ask her to leave everything on because I wanted to see the entire picture. And I have to say, those were incredible moments of just pure rehearsal to be Freddie in hair and makeup and doing essentially what he would do is try costume on after costume and be meticulous about what he wanted to wear. And so you talk about ensemble. It is our ensemble. It is this even greater ensemble of Jan and Julian. And now let's talk about Paulie, movement coach. I've discovered that watching all this material on Freddie, you know, he never knew what he was going to do at any given moment. He was so spontaneous, and I think that was the beauty of his performance. Is he didn't get out there and do anything rehearsed. He fed off the energy of the audience and the band, and collectively they made something brand new and beautiful every night. And I wanted that feeling to exist, not only in the performance aspects, but in all of the scenes as well. I never really wanted to know exactly what I was going to do physically in any particular moment in time. And she was just incredible at slowly but surely getting me to understand simple mannerisms, like how he would smoke a cigarette, how he would have a conversation with someone if he was in aggressive mood, how he was, you know, in his more demure moments. And then later on, we started putting everything up on its feet. And I have to thank her for her endless patience with me, because I'm not that musically inclined, believe it or not. So God bless her. And eventually, she brought us all into the fold together. So, and I think she was, we just could not have done it without her, could we? Indisposable.
Yeah, also, so the four of you guys are literally dressed like rock stars, but your wardrobe is more casual for the time anyway. So in your case, because it was a little more casual, how did that help you better find Mary?
I think, one of my first scenes was in Bieber, that very, very iconic store, and I had heard so much about it from Julian's endless stories and my own mother talking about me. God, of course I know about Bieber. Everyone knew about Bieber. So to wear, to see all the pictures of the clothes they wore and to wear that first outfit, it was a very specific thing. It wasn't as you would kind of off the top of your head imagine high fashion at that time. It was very specific to the Bieber girl, which was like the cool, unapproachable girl, which Mary did not consider herself at all. So it was slightly, talk about fish out of water. As one of the themes in this film, but yeah, so I think it was the combination of, the very comfortable wardrobe, the very cool clothes, and the consciousness that she was somewhat uncomfortable in it. It was a weird kind of departure from myself stepping into that, and then the slight discomfort of the newness of it.
So, but 2 weeks ago, I did one of these things with Graham King, producer of Bohemian Rhapsody, and he told how it was a 10-year process to make this movie, and it was a deep dive Q&A. It was really, really fascinating, and I said to him at the time, and that when I heard they're making a movie about Freddie Mercury and Queen, I thought, well, there's only really one way for this movie to end, and it's kind of on a downer, because he died of AIDS in November of 1991. So when I saw the film here, I was sitting right over there where you're sitting in the glasses, and for the very first time. And that last 20 minutes of this movie, you will not find a better scene at all in 2018 films than that Live Aid scene. And you shot it when?
Day one.
Day one? Why?
Yeah, because we have sadistic producers. No, it seemed madness at the time. We were terrified, but it was great because there's only one way. You've got to just take the leap. You've got to jump in at the deep end, and you've got to really commit. And after having shot that, after I think it was 8 days, maybe I think we shot the whole thing in 8 days. There was a sense that we could go on and do anything after that. If you can do that, you can do anything. So it was a great way to start, actually.
So was it sort of like the mindset of like, well, if we do this first, the rest will be a walk in the park? Or was it just logistically like, well, you know what, the weather's nicer this time of the year, so let's do that, what was sort of the mindset behind that?
Yeah, well, the Live Aid took place in July of '85, and obviously we're shooting in London, and we started in, I think, September and went through the winter, so it was a logistical thing of having, so many background actors, supporting actors, not scantily clad, I won't say, but just in summer outfits. You could not do that in December or January and have people look like they, I mean, people would be shivering.
But they didn't tell us that. The producers didn't tell us that when we were doing it. They gave this, you know, creative reason why we had to do it first. No, it had to forge us together. It was like baptism by fire, you know. Get the energy up for the entire shoot, set a precedent. I didn't find out it was a weather thing until Graham King was sitting in one of these Q&As and said it. And I was like, excuse me? But what was great about it though is that they did bring us out, you know, or they brought me out like 5 weeks, you know, before we started shooting. And we got that down, you know, to a science. Each little movement, each little beat, no matter what our characters were doing in that moment. If you're watching that on YouTube, you can see us do those moves exactly. And just to tell a little other story about Polly Bennett and kind of forging us together, you know, Polly comes from like a theater background as well, so we were doing a lot of sort of theater exercises during like these 5 weeks. We were stretching, there are funny pictures of us doing all that stuff in the mirror. And she always used to do this thing, like before you go out on stage, just like touch in, right? Just like kind of like have your energy sort of connected. And it feels like maybe a little bit silly or just like a little bit, whatever. But the moment before we walk out on that stage was the first take of the first day. We were all obsessively like, we gotta touch in, where's everybody? We gotta touch. And we continued doing that through the press tour. If we had to do something live, we were going on a TV show. We do it all the time now. And it's just such a funny thing that you think is silly at the time, and it becomes like this integral part of your process to make sure that like you're all bonded and with each other for those big moments when you gotta go out there and really lean on each other.
So in terms of like the mixing of the actual, maybe not the actual, well, yeah, the actual performance, but for all of you, not just Freddie, but you know, your part of it is you, and then the rest of it is the whether it's Queen or it's somebody who like someone a satellite, you know, like how did that like mix, you know, well, for all of you really.
We all had to learn how to play instruments for one. And I guess you played a little, Joe, and right? What did you?
Just a little guitar. I never played bass before actually, but I played a little guitar, and that helped me learn the bass pretty quickly.
There's only 4 strings.
Yeah.
But then you're
unlike that though. Anything could be a drum, so you can just. I'm a drummer.
All in independency, actually, Joe. It's very difficult. Yeah, it was definitely really tough, the instrument side of it, but also, like, I just saw it as such a positive thing as well. Like, how many people say, oh, I wish I learned to play piano when I was younger, because I now don't have the time, because I have a full-time job and I can't do it. So we were getting paid, you know, our job was to learn these musical instruments, and whilst there was a lot of pressure with it, and it was definitely a crash course, it was also, we also gained these skills which we wouldn't have got if we didn't have that experience.
Yeah, we played everything. We played everything. I mean, it was a bit more forgiving for Joe and I because we weren't plugged in. So if we did make a mistake, we can get away with it. Ben can't get away with it. You see those cymbals rocking. You see the hands moving and the sticks hitting the drums. So fair play. You did really well, man. Yeah. But equally, like, there would be moments, we all had a pretty good rapport with the camera operator, and we'd be able to say to him, he'd have the camera on my hands, for instance, and I'd be quite happy for certain moments of a solo, and then I'd be like, Pete, lift the camera up, this is impossible, I can't play that. So that was always quite useful. But we definitely became a band, you know, like, we would have rehearsals and we'd plug in and we'd play properly together, and only through doing that can you have that connection and realise that we're constantly looking at this guy to keep our time. Everything is on him. We need to keep eye contact with each other. We need to like pass the baton to each other when it's a solo or whatever, and that then informs a physical movement around the stage. There was this bit in when you do this like walking back like a giraffe. Yeah.
I think you just saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're constantly, when you watch Queen, they're very aware of each other's presence on stage. Brian and Freddie especially, you're passing the baton, as he said, when there's a guitar solo. And you can see Freddie just come up to him and almost give him the spotlight in a way. Maybe some would say he's taking the spotlight away from him by playing air guitar next to one of the greatest guitar players that ever lived. One other great anecdote is the Another One Bites the Dust scene. So go for it, Joe.
Yeah, one of the last things that we shot in terms of like being a band was the Another One Bites the Dust scene. And so by that point we had been playing our instruments for quite a while. And it wasn't like the other ones where you could sort of have a recording that you could fall back on. This was something that was sort of being created in the moment. And so one of the music directors came up to me and just said, Joe, you just turn the switch and you're on, and you're playing live in the scene. And I was mortified, I was petrified of that. Because I could always make a mistake and you couldn't hear it, but I'm like, okay, yeah, cool, cool. And Dexter kind of came up to me and he was just like, you can play, right? I was like, yeah, of course, yeah. It's gonna be fine, it's gonna be great. But what happens in that moment is, you know, I start playing the lick to Another One Bites the Dust, and then Will was like, well, I want to play. And so he plugs in and then he's playing his part. And then of course Ben was always playing his part. He goes to the drums, and Rami actually came up to me in the rehearsal. He said, hey, when do you want me to come in with the lyric? And I said, well, I'll just go off of your cue. And we had this weird moment where we kind of looked at each other and we said, oh my goodness, we're a band. Because literally we're going to just be playing this intro, and like our lead singer is going to be like doing whatever he wants to do, you know, like warming up the crowd or whatever, and then when he starts, we all have to be ready to go in that moment. And so when we started realizing we were actually thinking like a band and playing live together as a band, that was sort of this culminating moment where it was like all that hard work had paid off, and we weren't just sort of, we weren't faking it, we were doing it, and we were like enjoying, like feeding off of each other in that way. It was a very, very special moment, I think, and you know, not just the movie, but like my career. That was just like the most wonderful thing. I loved it.
In terms of, I'm assuming that Live Aid was the toughest of the musical numbers to shoot, but like what sort of comes in a second, and maybe not even like a musical scene, but just like just a hard scene to shoot where you really had to help each other get through it as an ensemble.
Every day. Yeah, I would say that as you know, Graham said we wanted to forge it together with Live Aid, which may or may not have been true. It did. So you know, we could rely on each other every time we went up on stage, and what was beautiful was we would do some scenes of just you know, straightforward acting, and then at the end of the week we might have 3 concert scenes back to back, and we'd look forward to those days, and in between we'd be rehearsing on instruments and be working on the piano every break that we could get, and then we would put it all together, and we just looked out for each other throughout. No matter what it was, we would, you know, go to one another and ask for rehearsal time so we could get out on the stage and work things out. But by far, Live Aid was the most difficult. It's difficult to jump into those songs when you're just trying to pick up a shot here and there from a song. When a song works at its best is when you do it from start to finish, and there's a rise and fall as it's written, as it's performed, and that's what we realized we really were missing in Live Aid. We started with doing Bohemian Rhapsody on day 1 and Radio Gaga day 2, and so on and so forth, every song on each day, but we never felt like we really had the kind of organic nature and energy that it takes when you see the whole 20-minute set done. So after about 5-6 days, I went to Graham and I said, listen, man, before we take this set down, I think we're missing something. And I said, you really need to give us a shot to do this 20-minute set as one long take, start to finish. And that, to me, was by far our greatest performance. So thank God for that. Yeah. And to talk about singing, I mean, that was I got to sing to a backing track, but I still had to sing my lungs out every day. And I remember by the end of Live Aid, the sound guys could hear my voice was going, because it'd been 5-6 straight days of singing, and I'm not I took all the singing lessons in the world, and I could take them for the rest of my life. I'll never be Freddie Mercury. I mean, those were the daunting things. For me, was the scariest was singing, piano, to learn a piano from never ever touching one in my life was difficult enough. On page 16, I saw the stage direction said, Freddie Mercury plays the piano upside down.
I just want to ask about Alan Leach. I mean, he's really good in the film. I mean, I wish he was here to join us, but what was your take on working with him?
So Alan came, we'd been a band for 5 weeks already because we had all the rehearsal, we'd done the Live Aid stuff, and Alan came in after this moment, and there was never a moment where he wasn't going to be part of this family. And he just came in and he said, look, I'm not in the band, I'm the 5th Beatle, but I'm part of this family. And he absolutely was. He's like such a beautiful spirit on set. He's a very funny man, and you know, he was, you know, part of the family without doubt.
And we were all at his wedding this weekend. Yeah, he got married this weekend, and all 5 of us were there.
And then Sunday night, you had a good night.
Yes. We came home from the wedding that morning, like yesterday morning. It's like literally like it just happened. But that's like, I think that speaks to how close that we all are and have stayed. You know, that it was just like no matter what, we were all going to be there. It's really
the rabbi at the wedding, of course, he blessed them and wished them, of course, you know, the happiest of journeys together, and that we were the golden glove. Which, had we not got it, I would have thought was very awkward, but I'm very glad it worked out.
ominous for their marriage.
We got time for 2 questions. Okay, you're first.
My question is for Rami. Sacha Baron Cohen was at the Golden Globes last night. He was originally cast as Freddie. Did you have any exchanges with him last night?
I have to say I did. He was so gracious and a perfect gentleman, and yeah, he was extremely kind. So hats off to him, man.
You in the green shirt.
Was it like working with Mike Myers, and did he bring any energy or enthusiasm?
Oh, the Mike Myers scene. All right, yes, that was awesome, by the way.
It was the best few days of work I've ever had. It was absolutely amazing, and he did it. It was quite early on in the shoot as well, so he came in and just had us in stitches the whole day, and the whole days he was in, and a lot of improvising and like coming out with things you just weren't expecting, and he set the precedent throughout the whole shoot, because like he said lines that on paper shouldn't have been funny. There was a line that was just scripted saying, "How's Japan?" Not a funny line, but Mike Myers goes, "How's Japan?" Like this. And then that became our catchphrase then throughout the whole shoot. "How's Japan?" And then in between takes, he'd also say things like, what was his little thing? Shizzes and gizzies.
Just for funsies.
Just for funsies, just for funsies. Which, like, just to take the pressure off, you know, to like remind yourself this is just playful.
And he'd start every take with, "I'm not Willie Nelson." Like he just finished a joke. Like,
Okay, one more question. Yes, you. You.
So the Queen story is such a big story to tell, and I'm wondering, from everything that got filmed, maybe something got left out that you were really excited about? Was there anything that didn't make the movie?
Something that was shot that didn't make the movie, or maybe something that just, you know, wasn't shot that you wanted in the film?
Well, I mean, obviously, when you have a movie with this type of success, everyone goes, well, how do you make the sequel now? And this wouldn't even need to carry over from where we left off. There's, I mean, so much to their lives that you want to incorporate. There's a moment when Bohemian Rhapsody hit the top of the charts, and they walked through the hotel, got into the elevator, tried to play it cool, got the 4 of them in an elevator, started jumping up and down, screaming, and the elevator just stops, And Freddie goes, here we are, worked our asses off for so long. Now the album and the song, it finally hit #1. Greatest band right now for a moment, and we're going to be stuck in a lift and die. And that was a moment I would have loved to have seen in the film, so maybe later on. But what is on the cutting room floor?
Oh wait, you know what I want to ask on that note? Like growing up, as a kid growing up in Philadelphia, I discovered Queen. Don't hate me, because of Flash Gordon. Was there anything ever in the original story, in the original script, that we don't have to film that? You could say no, it's okay.
Not in any script that I'd read.
Yeah,
but that would be great. Get Brian Blessed in his wings. That would be good.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, okay, so two things. First, we got a bolt from here so we can stay seated while we exit. First of all, okay, second of all, more importantly, Bohemian Rhapsody is still in theaters. So please make sure you spread the word. Go on Facebook, go on Instagram, go on whatever, Twitter, you're still using MySpace, whatever it takes, spread the word about Bohemian Rhapsody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.